Welcome, my friends, back to the YouTube channel known as W. Hansen, or as I am going to start calling myself now, Wenson. I think Wenson is a much better name. Now, you may be asking, Wenson, why in the summertime in Wisconsin, why are you wearing a full on mask and a winter hat and a sweater? The answer is I don't know. Moving on, this is my review of the newest Star Wars live action series on Disney Plus known as The Acolyte. Now, The Acolyte has really achieved something big within the Star Wars community because it is somehow a series that managed to beat the Book of Boba Fett for the most disliked Star Wars show by the fandom in general. Now, I have seen many thoughts about this show. I just wanted to get mine out personally into the space, although don't have a very large audience. So I'm really just doing this for fun, but whatever. So I think let's just get right into my thoughts. I have seen some very negative thoughts about this show. I have seen some neutrally positive thoughts about most aspects of this show. And what I think, as you could have guessed by the title, this show is a mixed bag. And what I mean by that is this show is very on and off. At some points I was like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. And at some points, almost immediately after, I went, what the heck? What the heck am I even watching? So I have a whole list of notes to get through here about aspects of the show. I'm going to start by just going through the chunks of the show that I think went kind of up and downhill as it went along. So starting with episodes 1 through 2, I grouped these together because they're about the same level of quality. I thought these episodes were alright. They started the show off in a mildly interesting way. I was mad that they immediately killed off the lady from the Matrix, but you can't have everything you want, I guess. I mean, hopefully, if they introduce any other cool Jedi across this show, they won't immediately kill them off either. Episode 3, I thought was not that great. I mean, I think the main thoughts about this episode were pretty much negative across the board. I didn't like this episode. I think sometimes it's a little bit excessive among the fandom, but I think it moved at a very slow pace. A lot of things were made deliberately unclear because this episode would be told again from the different perspective later on, a perspective I much preferred. And um, yeah, I think some aspects of it just felt annoying. I wasn't a big fan of the witches. I mean, they were definitely a cool concept to have like a force cult that is found by a team of Jedi. And but like I think the way it was handled was just really goofy. I mean, everyone's already heard the jokes about the power of one, power of two chant that they had, which I mean, sillier things have been in Star Wars. So really I just thought episode 3 was not Star Wars at its best. Episode 4, I left episode 4 with one thought in my head. What? And it wasn't just because of the cliffhanger, it was because. Alright, so most of the episode was like pretty average for the Acolyte. It was just. Really, they're just walking through a forest talking about Osha's backstory. And I thought it wasn't super engaging. They were kind of just walking through the woods. And then there were only two things in this episode that genuinely stood out to me, and both of those two things made me mad. One, they immediately kill off the Wookiee Jedi. Two, May makes a character decision that I thought was very out of character that I will discuss later when I get to the characters. Episode 5, I think everyone ever pretty much agrees this is the best episode, at least in terms of excitement level. Like, the action in this episode was absolutely top notch. And that was really the main highlight. I mean, the episode was pretty much just a big fight and its aftermath, and I enjoyed it, especially all the deaths, how bold they were, how dark it got. I thought it slowed down once the battle was over, and it was like main Osha talking again. And then it also introduced the character of, I believe it's pronounced Chimere. Sorry if I'm not doing it right, but everyone else says Chimere, so I thought he was a very interesting character, and he continued to be interesting throughout the rest of the show. I think, along with Soul, who I'll get to later, he's one of the highlights of the show, character wise. And episode 6, which is the aftermath of that whole battle, it exists. I mean, all the stuff with Chimere was very interesting. The way he was kind of manipulating Osha. But other than that, this episode was just very slow. Oh, the everything with Soul in this episode though was like, it was so good. It was amazing. It was the emotion. I think Soul is the best acted character in this whole series. Episode 7, as mentioned before, this was episode 3, but told from the Jedi's perspective. And I thought this was a much better telling of the story that was told in episode 3. Does that mean it's great? A car just drove by. No, it doesn't. But I did think the episode was kind of good. I mean, the morals are to be debated in this episode. It's an episode that I think got me thinking about the morals a lot. And I mean, what happened in this episode is really the crux for everything in this entire series. So, yeah, episode 7, it's kind of good. Episode 8, the finale, I think this was. I don't know if the phone can pick that up, but that was another car. This episode was as good of a conclusion as could have been made to this series. I think this finale wasn't going to change anyone's minds. It wasn't going to reframe the series for everyone. I think it just cemented everyone's opinion on this show. For me, I thought the show was very inconsistent, very mixed bag. And this episode just, like, finally got it set in stone, proved to me this show is a very mixed bag. And, I mean, that's just what the finale did in terms of, like, the pacing and the dialogue and just, the stuff within the finale itself. It was pretty good. I think it was pretty good. Now I'm going to move on to my review of the characters in this show, which is, oh boy, the characters are a very mixed part of this mixed bag in the show. Starting with the main protagonist, we have Osha. I think Osha was a good character throughout most of this show. However, once she met Chimere and started to get manipulated by him, I think it was a very interesting concept to have her fall to the dark side. But the way it was handled was like very choppy. Like, I don't want to like do too many comparisons here because everyone's been comparing this to everything else in Star Wars. But if you are comparing this to the other famous turn to the dark side in Star Wars, which is Anakin, this was done very choppily. It felt like it only took one episode for Osha to be fully manipulated, and that was it. Like, once she put on that helmet, she was just fully on Chimere's side, even though he killed every single one of her friends, which feels completely irrational on Osha's part. And then as the rest of the show went on, when Osha finally made that decision, or maybe not even a decision, that just that impulsive action to force choke Soul to death, I thought, I don't know, it just felt like this turn in the character should have been focused on more. It felt very sudden. It felt like it didn't take enough for her to just completely turn against who was essentially her father figure throughout her entire life, at least after the incident on Brendock. And I think this character arc for Osha had a lot of potential. I just think, once again, it was very clunky. Then moving on to May, the other main character of the show, the other twin. I'm going to just come right out and say it. May is not a good character. Alright? I mean, May was kind of the face of this show for the first like 2 episodes. She was the one who was murdering Jedi. She was the one who was being investigated into. She was the one wearing the outfit, the Acolyte outfit, I guess, working for a mysterious master. I mean, May was kind of the center of the plot. And then after 3 episodes, after the flashback episode, once May decided to back out of killing Master Kelnaka, once she decided to back out of that deal with Chimere, who she just thought was a mysterious Sith figure at the time, May just completely lost me as a character. She was just all over the place. I didn't even know who she was. Like, and at certain points she just felt like Osho with minor personality differences. At other, like, when she backed out of that deal, I never knew where her loyalties lay, you know. Her loyalties, no, I don't know. I never knew whose side she was on. You know, at first it seemed like she was fully dedicated to this Sith master she was working for, to Chimere. And then later on, once she backed out of the deal, it was like she didn't even care about that deal at all. She just wanted to find her sister. But then once we got towards the end of the show, what was she even there for? What were her goals? What were her motivations? Did she just want to be reunited with Osha? Is that it? But if that's all she wanted, why was she so dedicated to killing Jedi and working for Chimere in the first few episodes? It just doesn't make sense to me. That decision to back out of the deal in episode 4 is probably what broke her character, in my opinion. Then, as a whole, both twins, Osha and May, I thought their arc together was just kind of muddled. Once again, at points I didn't know what their motivations were, what their goals were, what was going on inside their heads. And then that final part where they had that emotional goodbye, the finally reunite and then separate. I mean, it had some nice callbacks to the flashback episodes, but other than that, I wasn't too invested in their story. But then moving on to Soul, Master Soul. This is on the completely other end of the spectrum. Soul is my favorite character in the Acolyte show. He is extremely well acted, well written, I think. He's a very complex character. He's a representation of what happens when the Jedi, I wouldn't want to say give in to their emotions, because that was more Anakin's thing, but just, I guess, he's a very flawed Jedi. And unfortunately, once episode 7 came out, and then later the finale, once it was revealed kind of the full scale of Soul's character in the role he took in the finale, I was kind of upset by the way he was treated in the finale. Not the way Master Vernestra handled the situation, covering the whole thing up and blaming it all on Soul. I thought was fairly reasonable, given that May had been memory wiped and she didn't want May to be blamed for the whole thing that she couldn't even remember. But I just thought Soul was kind of treated as this pseudo-antagonist towards the end of the show, and that's not what I wanted for him. He's just a very flawed, complex Jedi, but he was extremely well-meaning. But I thought the way he was acted, the way he fought... Is that a motorcycle? The way he was acted, the way he fought, it was all perfect. And moving on to Vernestra, the green lady, who's the only character in this series that is actually a carryover from the High Republic books. I thought she was... I think the best way to describe her would be a comforting presence. You know, amidst all this morally fraught chaos going on towards the end of this show. I just reached for something that wasn't there. Anyway, towards the end, she kind of swooped in and completely ruined Soul's legacy, but still, she acted fairly balanced she kind of became the main character for the last chunk of this episode, the finale. And since I already knew her from the High Republic books, I just thought, I don't know, she's not a perfect character in the show by any means, but she was definitely kind of, a light in all the darkness of what was going on. That because what was going on, I felt like I was in the middle of all this confusion, and Bernestra was not a very confusing presence, unlike all the other characters. Like, I could just tell who she was and what her values and goals are. Moving on to Chimere, the Sith Master. Shut up, vehicles outside. The Sith Master behind it all. I thought Chimere is probably my second favorite character to Soul. Very interesting character. I'm excited to see where he leads in following Star Wars projects if the show gets renewed, which I don't know if that's going to happen given the reaction, but we'll see. Although if this show gets renewed and Moon Knight doesn't, I'm going to be mad. But that's a Marvel thing. Anyway, Chimere is a very good character. I liked his mysterious origins, his connection to Vernestra, the way he manipulated Osha. I wasn't a fan of Osha's arc, but Chimere's role in it, I think, was good. And yeah, and the way he fought was just, you know, and he looked cool when in full costume. Then moving on, the other Brendok Jedi, so that would be Master Indara, Master Torben, and Master Kelnaka. I thought they were wasted potential, if I'm going to be honest, because, I mean, Master Torben, he was a fine character. Indara, once again, played by Carrie, I don't remember her name fully, but the actor from the Trinity from the Matrix. I thought having her in Star Wars was a huge opportunity, and they killed her off immediately and only had her be in flashbacks where she was kind of just, I mean, her role in the flashbacks was pretty much just like a voice of reason to Soul, and that was it. She didn't do too much. I thought she was wasted potential. Same with Kelnaka, a literal. I'm mad about this. That another reason I don't like episode 4. They kill off the Wookiee Jedi before he can actually do anything. The first. Is it the first? I don't know, but a live action Wookiee Jedi. And you immediately kill him off. I was happy we got to see him fight in the second flashback episode, but I wanted to see him fight in the present day. I wanted more of a Wookiee Jedi, and I was very sad about his ultimate fate. Killed off screen too. That's just rude. Final characters I'll talk about are Yord and Jeki. These are the other members of Soul and Osha's team who ended up perishing that fateful episode where Chimere slaughtered everybody. I thought they were nice. They were nice presences. Yord was annoying at first, but then he got better in episode 4 of all episodes. Jeki was great throughout. The way she fought her duel with Chimere was amazing. I was very shocked when both of them died in such brutal ways. And actually, originally when I saw episode 5, I wasn't really sure what to make of it, but now that I've had moments to contemplate everything, I did think the decision to kill off all the Jedi was very bold and very cool. They're not pulling any punches here, Then moving on to kind of my final points before I end this review. I thought the show as a whole should have been more focused. It felt like it kind of had an identity crisis, didn't know what it wanted to be. A murder investigation, an exploration of the Jedi's corruption, a tale of the hidden origins of the Sith. 100 years-ish before the prequels happened, Darth Plagueis just showed up out of nowhere. I wanted more from him. I mean, he's Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis the Wise. Are you kidding me? It's not a story the Jedi would tell us, and not a story Disney will tell us, I guess. Anyway, I did wish there was more of like a murder investigation vibe to this show. That's the aspect I was very excited about when the trailer first came out. I was like, someone's killing Jedi. I'm like, ooh, hmm, Jedi murder investigation. I like that. And it kind of went nowhere. They immediately revealed who the killer was. That was that. Then, one of the main things I see people talking about this show, and one of the main reasons I was kind of mixed on this show right from the start, was the way it treated the Jedi. You know, a lot of people have argued that since the prequels, the Jedi have been explored and treated to be not perfect heroes. They are very rigid, there's flaws to their system, and I'm a big fan of that whole thing in the prequels. But in the High Republic era, and this is further exemplified by the actual High Republic books, the Jedi are the guardians of peace and justice. This is supposed to be the Jedi's peak. That's it. That's how the High Republic era was marketed. That's how it plays out in the books. And in the books, you can really there's an airplane. In the books, you can really draw the comparisons between how the Jedi higher ups act in during this era and how they act in the prequels, and you can draw that line to figure out this is how they felt. And that's what in the Jedi were treated as very flawed, at times arrogant in this show, The Acolyte. And I thought it was not the right time period to explore that. This is supposed to be the Jedi's peak. But, this is a big but, I thought they kind of let go of that notion as the show progressed, because it was less of an exploration of of corruption in the Jedi as a whole, and more just an exploration of one very flawed Jedi, that being Master Soul. And like Vernestra kind of coming in at the end and making all her decisions, I thought it kind of saved the show from me thinking it was like attacking and deconstructing the Jedi. It's a lot more complex than that. And I think this show is better described as a way of show, because this does take place after the High Republic books. So I think this is best described as the beginning of the flawedness of the Jedi. You know, Soul and his team were that first spark, and it eventually blossomed over 100 years into the fire of the prequels. And so that's how I'm deciding to think about it. You don't have to think about it the same way as me, but and final thoughts on the show, because that's about it. I wanted to talk for a moment about the discourse surrounding the show. People have already talked about all the toxicity going on between the two extreme sides of the Star Wars fandom. What I wanted to talk about was a lot of people keep, every time a controversial Star Wars show or movie comes out, ever since The Last Jedi, people keep saying Disney's destroying Star Wars. You know, Star Wars it's dying. I'm done with Star Wars. It's being destroyed. I want nothing more to do with Star Wars. It's completely lost its soul. No pun intended, because soul, ha. I'm tired of hearing that. I feel like, sure, Star Wars has a lot of controversial, some might say, poor quality shows and movies nowadays. That doesn't mean it's being destroyed. There's Andor Season 2 is going to come out at some point here. Everyone loved first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, parts of Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Andor Season 1 was great. I thought Kenobi was great. It was just very flawed and choppy, but I loved the character building in that show. And I think it's really annoying now when people just say, Star Wars is dead. Star Wars is being destroyed by Disney. Like, if you don't like any of the products that are coming out anymore, sure, I'm not stopping you. You don't need to stay attached to the franchise. If you think it's bad now, go ahead, exit the fandom. But stop saying it's like, your childhood is being destroyed before your very eyes. It's annoying. That's not what's happening here. It's just people making shows and movies that people may or may not like. Final thoughts. I keep saying final thoughts. Actual final thoughts. The absolute best parts of the show, fighting, and I think a good amount of the acting were great. Like, it was pretty good. That's about it. I just ranted about the Acolyte for 25 minutes, I think. And that's that. If in the rare occasion you are watching this whole thing, comment down below. What did you think of the Acolyte? What did you think of this strange show that we have witnessed? Are you excited for Andor Season 2? I know I am. Where do you live? Where do you live? Okay, I'm done acting creepy. Bye.